No, thank you so much for having me. And Greg, it's great to have this discussion with you today. As mentioned, my name is Justin Parnell. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Insights for Mondelēz in the US. So I'm responsible for our overall insights and analytics team, which includes data strategy and governance, which is very pertinent to what we're going to talk about today, as well as our digital media, CX, customer service and care, so kind of covering the overall marketing ecosystem in the US.
Great, great. And talk a little bit, if you could, about Mondelēz's journey into AI, about where you are now, what brought you there, any real hesitation, hurdles that you had to overcome, things like that.
It's hard to map a really linear journey when it comes to AI. I feel like one morning I woke up and half my meetings were about AI. I can't even, it's just there was just this avalanche of conversation around how do we utilize AI across our business. And I think we've gotten very smart and considered about how we approach AI. I'd say as an organization, we're pretty bullish on AI in general, but we take safety, transparency, privacy, all those issues very importantly. I think we put together the right infrastructure around it, which I'm sure we can talk more about. But I would say in terms of a journey, I think where we leaned in early on was more around how AI can really make us operationally more effective and efficient. And I think it's partly due to the data sort of safety, right? When we're dealing with more of our internal own data or external macro data, it's kind of a safer environment. But some of the areas where I think we've leaned in and it's been incredibly effective for us is around forecasting. So it's been very effective in helping us get sharper forecast, manage our inventory. We use it with logistics to make sure we have, snacking is all about having the right product in the right place at the right time. So we leverage it from a logistics standpoint to make sure that we're managing our inventory effectively. The other area that's been really exciting for us is we're utilizing AI for price and promotion optimization. So our biggest spend from a marketing standpoint is trade promotion, by far. And so I was looking at the stats earlier, we have 250 colleagues at Mondelēz working across 170 retailers, creating 20,000 promotions a year. So you can imagine how complex that gets, and we're utilizing AI to optimize the effectiveness of our promotions and our pricing strategies in the market. And I think that's probably the area where we've been, obviously, made the biggest impact so far. The other thing that I would say, I'm responsible for insights, and we spend tons of time crunching data, pulling data, and putting it in Excel, then putting it in PowerPoint, then another PowerPoint for management. We all know it, right? We've actually created what we call Snack GPT. It's kind of in its infancy stage, but it's actually just like GPT. You ask it a question: what's driving my business? Why is my business down at Albertsons in Chicago on this brand? And it gives you the answer. It gives you the answer, gives you the charts. You have exactly what you need to diagnose kind of what's happening on your business, and sort of it's helping to streamline and make us more effective. And the important thing about that, we're talking about marketing here, right? Is it unlocks our time to focus on the things that matter most, which is delighting our consumers with the right innovation, marketing, and communication. So I share that as kind of the early stages of where we've really, I think, gone fast. I think the next horizon for us is really exciting because I'm starting to see us utilize AI really in trend spotting, so understanding where the consumer and the market is going. We did a study recently where we used AI to analyze over 70 million social media conversations in snacking. And that helped us really define exactly where's the conversation, where's the momentum in this market, what are the unmet needs and opportunities. So that's utilizing AI to really get us much smarter from a strategic standpoint. We're now utilizing it for, and we can talk more about this if the audience or you want to get into it, but we use it for innovation concepting now. So processes that used to take months to get to a validated consumer idea is now taking us days. And we're using it to design packages and test packaging graphics with consumers. So that's all really exciting. And probably the biggest frontier for us is creative content creation through generative AI. And so that's really a big priority for us globally. And where we're really looking to accelerate is how do we utilize generative AI for more personalized experiences, really based on specific audience segments. So sorry, that was a lot, but it's a big question. We're applying it in so many ways.
You can argue that you answered my next 6 questions, and now I'm scrambling. But I heard a lot there. I want to go back to. I think about all this through the backdrop of what manifests as a very complex business, multi-brands. Are you thinking about this at a portfolio level, at individual brands? And certainly it was a problem in our partnership, I think, when we were thinking about how to harness, aggregate, organize, and deploy first-party data in a, and pardon the cliche, but a future-proof sort of way. We had to be mindful of that dimensionality here. So I want to understand a little bit about how you're thinking about AI at an individual product level, at a category level. Is it something that is that you're even conscious of, or is it? It sounds like there's very little whack-a-mole that's going on at Mondelēz, which is great. But I'd love to understand a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it varies. I think let's take generative AI for content development. That is a major investment for us, and given its importance to our business and the investment level we're making, we're definitely sort of cracking that at a global level, right? So we're kind of building the infrastructure at a global level, building a proprietary model with the right kind of knowledge bases that we can really build and apply globally. As we build it, we're picking brand country combinations to test and pilot it. So for us in the US, we're going to be doing, we're kind of in it right now with our Oreo business, our Chips Ahoy business. We're starting with them. We pick the brands for very specific reasons. We pick Chips Ahoy because we want to see how well we can use generative AI for character development, because we have Chip, a character. It can be very difficult to train a model on, so we pick it for that reason. Oreo, you have a milk dunk, which milk can be very challenging in image generation. So you'd be surprised. It can look like glue. So really training a model, and that's one of the challenges with food in general, I would say, with training these models, and why it gets very technical and specific, is food has to look absolutely delicious and craveable. And you'd be shocked how hard it is to get like a great chocolate pour or a milk splash. So these are things that we really scrutinize quite a bit. And so we we prioritize brands and countries where we can have the greatest learnings that have specific needs from a use case standpoint, and then we scale fast from there. So I think that's how we've approached it on major initiatives like generative AI for content development. There are other areas where it's more they're more experimentation platforms, where we'll use sort of a test brand in country to see how it works. So one example is we're using Pack AI right now to generate pack design concepts and test among, we have thousands of concepts we're putting out into the market or through AI that we're testing the effectiveness of. And so we're kind of a pilot country and test for that. We're going to see how it works, and we bring it to a global council. If it works, we look about how do we scale it. So it's a combination. I think there's some areas where I think it's maybe lower investment, lower risk. We're experimenting on, seeing if we can scale it. Some of these bigger platforms, we're definitely organizing around it at a global level.
It leads me to a thought that Linda shared with us earlier about Danone's wall of shame, and really underscoring the value in learning from things that it's hard to call them failures, but they're learning points. And I'm curious to understand, as you're engaging in this, particularly in the generative AI for content frontier, how are you defining success, and as importantly, how are you learning from the things that aren't as successful?
Yeah, you did get me. I mean, I don't think we have. I mean, it's like failure, I don't know, wouldn't use that word. I think we're constantly learning and constantly saying like, well, I mean, these are the early days, right? And so we're learning the technologies continually improving and getting better. So I think it's more like continuously challenging ourselves to how do we make the models like more intelligent, right? Ensure that we're maximizing the quality of the output. We definitely have human oversight across everything we put out in the market when it comes to AI today. So, given where we're at, and obviously brand safety concerns still. So I think for us, it's constantly looking at, okay, like where can we learn from where we are, and how do we continue to raise the bar?
You talked a lot just then about the human oversight, and again, it calls to mind what I think Linda said earlier around how AI cannot necessarily replace people, but it is going to force some hard conversations around training and empowering the next generation of marketers to lean into this. Are you sensing any palpable difference in the skill sets that you are seeing a need for, and you're sort of looking for externally when it comes to hiring?
Yeah, I think we're trying to level up our entire organization, not just marketing, but everyone around AI. We just had an AI summit at our Mondelēz offices last week, and so we're really providing resources that are helping all colleagues really understand AI, sort of the risks, the guardrails around AI, our principles, the use case application, the sort of applications. So I think there's an overall upskilling and education that's happening at an organizational level. We have absolutely brought in talent with very specific expertise. One area that I brought into my team is, really invested in data strategy and governance experts. Because if we don't have quality data organized in the right way with the right controls around, then we are exposing ourselves to risk, and we're not going to be really effective at kind of capturing a lot of the opportunities when it comes to AI. So like there's pockets where, like that being one example, we've invested heavily like in data scientists across our business. I mean, they're sitting within my organization and sales organization, operations. And then we have leaders that really have expertise in digital transformation that are working at our total kind of leadership team level in the US as well as globally. So it's a combination, right? It's bringing in where we've, had gaps in terms of expertise, bringing in people that can really help us as an organization build that capability. But yeah, it really is about, if we're not as a total organization, if we don't have, as a total organization have the muscle in this space, then we're going to be left behind. So we really see this as a point of where it has to be an advantage for us in the market. Otherwise, we're going to be at risk.
Yep. We've tangentially touched on this idea of measurement, and we talked a little bit about creative and how you're testing into that. How is AI meaningfully impacting how you measure throughout the ecosystem?
I'd say this is an area that I don't think we're as developed on right now.
Okay.
I tell you, but I'll talk like the model that we're building. So we're building an internal generative AI model. There's 4, we call them knowledge bases. We used to call them brains. I like brains better, but knowledge bases. And one is around audience. So really, feeding the model with as much insight as possible and data that we have around audience, preferences, needs, the occasions. Then we have the brand, which is really feeding it with all of our brand guardrails, assets, usage guidelines. And then we have a performance pillar, which that's where we're really looking at how do we do. It's almost like it's like real-time A/B testing at infinity. Like you can test so many different iterations immediately with the audience segments that you've defined. So that's something we're building right now, and we actually are going to pilot. It's in pilot phase next year. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that works. And then the 4th knowledge base is channel. So that's when we get into real-time media mix optimization. So the idea is like we're developing for you have the brand. We're developing the right concepts for the right audience in the right channel that's optimized immediately from a performance standpoint. So that's kind of what we're building in total with this model, and we're kind of testing the components of it as we go, kind of now and into next year.
So just a couple things then.
Just a couple things. It's very complex. Like and this is why we are doing it. Like we're only doing it on a couple brands in the U.S. next year, and then we'll learn a lot. And then based on those learnings, we'll kind of figure out what our roadmap is to scale.
And this is a loaded question, and I suspect there's going to be a lot here. But can you highlight any big surprises that you've seen coming in here? Things that you either didn't expect or in a positive and a negative way as you sort of implemented AI across the ecosystem? You've talked a lot about the infrastructure. Anything that sticks out to you as something you weren't necessarily expecting, or has it all been?
I'll tell you what. I was when we started these conversations internally, I was very naive, and I would challenge my global counterparts and say, like, why aren't we going faster? Like I see all these kind of off-the-shelf solutions. We could be using this or that, I really, as I learned more, I had a true appreciation for why we need to build the internal model that we're building. And you asked about surprises. I mentioned this earlier. One of the things I was most surprised about when I was seeing kind of the output from various models that exist and early models is how low the food quality was, the integrity of the food, and also the representation of our brand assets. So I started understanding, okay, like it's really important. We have so many assets. We know exactly how a Milka chocolate bar needs to show up, or an Oreo twist, lick, and dunk moment needs to happen, or how the Sour Patch character comes to life. Like it's that is our brand. Like that is how we show up and how delicious we look and how our characters come across is absolutely critical. So putting the effort and investment into making that investment, to building kind of the internal model, which is expensive. It's like I really, that was a surprise for me, but an appreciation of why we're doing what we're doing. And honestly, it becomes into, protecting our IP and data as well, right? I mean, that's a huge part of it. And so I think that's why, I sort of see why we're doing it the way we're doing it.
I almost didn't ask this question, but I'm going to. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it, what one AI functionality or tool would you want to see next year? It's not fair.
No, it's not fair. We didn't actually. There were no questions prepped here, so because I would have said, "Don't ask that." No, no, it's a totally fair question. Honestly, it is. If I had one magic wand, I would want to go fast. Like I'm very impatient, and I see the huge potential behind this. Like I want to scale it as quickly as humanly possible because I see the value in it. But it all comes down to me. Like I think to do that, it's all about the integrity. And when I think about integrity, it's the creative quality. Like that's what's really important. Like yeah, I actually have more confidence in like the audience insight and the personalization of the message. Like that we have the data and the model to read that. I'm more concerned about the image video quality. Video obviously is very nascent. So it's like, so making sure we're at a level that lives up to our creative quality standards. So we know, we believe that it's, our brands are being represented well in the market. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand. If I could wave the magic wand, it would be like we have amazing creative quality and integrity, and then we could then feel confident scaling it across our business.
I'm very sorry.
No, it's all good. Hopefully I did all right.
We've got about 5 minutes left. I want to turn it out to the crowd. Any questions here for Justin?
I think it's because we recognize in this case we're in a learning mode. It's like you don't have a share target you have to deliver. It's like you have, like we're looking at it. It is a little bit more subjective, right? Like we're looking at it from is it producing the right creative quality? I mean, we will look at the measurement piece, like is it ultimately driving effectiveness? But I don't think right now we're putting so much emphasis on, at this stage, on the ROI. It's like, let's make sure this model works and is optimized. Once we feel like it is validated and we have like a strong model, then we're really gonna start pushing on what's the ROI, the gains in effectiveness, that kind of thing. But I think at this stage, it's much more about, it's kind of a laboratory. So, you learn, you fail, you grow in that space. So I think that's really the mindset that we have right now. I don't think we've seen yet. We haven't really seen the impact of AI in social at Mondelēz, right? You're saying in general. I mean, what I would say is I think it's kind of, I can't think of good examples across snacking. I think we will lead in snacking. I have no doubt about that. And I think we'll continue to lead in social media as we have been. Where I've seen the most, I kind of goes back to what I said earlier. I know it's not kind of the fanciest answer, but I think where I've seen it have the most impact really is on our selling fundamentals. I know that's probably not exciting to hear, but it's true. Like, it's helping us optimize, making sure we have the right products in the right stores, with the right assortment at the right price and promotion. So it's like that's really where, and I think as an industry, you'll always go where the most money and impact is. That's where it is to start. I think now as we go further, I'm like, okay, how do we use this as a brand builder? And then I think that's when I'll be able to answer that question, because I think that we'll see more application of it in terms of, in social media and across other parts of the ecosystem.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. In building the model that you're building, what are the challenges, or what is the thinking around IP rights related to driving the generative content as you're kind of sourcing the model for that generative AI? Or is that something on your mind?
I mean, we're working closely with Google. We partner with Google Cloud, Vertex AI on it. And I think that they have very clear AI responsibility principles that we've partnered in ensuring that we feel comfortable with, for one. We also have our own. And our inputs, these knowledge bases, are closed-looped and proprietary. So they feed into the model that there's no access to it beyond that, right? We're very clear in terms of the guardrails around that and any indemnity if our IP does get out beyond, kind of our walls, so to speak. So that's an area that we take very, very seriously. And so it's something that, we've been clear as we're sort of building it. Do we have the right, principles and governance in place to ensure that we are being careful in that space? Yep.
Yes.
Hi, Michael Mondele from Influencer. Your space is interesting overall, especially with the competition going on. You're seeing a lot of brands come in and create products based off of consumers, right? Nerds, clusters coming back, Skittles Pop, really coming, ideas based off of people and fans of the brand. I'm wondering how you're using AI to kind of predict those ebbs and flows, right? To make adjustments for an Oreo or a Chips Ahoy, where it's like, we want to capture this consumer moment or this consumer interest, whether it be with a product or a short release of a temporary product out there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's one of the areas I mentioned earlier. I didn't really go deep into it, but I'm super excited about is the work we're doing now to mine almost 100 million social media conversations a year to understand how are consumer preferences and needs changing. We're getting very scared. We call them growth territories, snacking growth territories. We know exactly kind of what's growing, why it's growing, how our brands fit to deliver against those needs, and if they don't, what's the gap in the market? Can we serve it with our brand? Do we need to launch a new brand? Do we need to launch a new product, an extension of the brand? So that, I think, is a game changer for us in terms of how, you think about it before, we would survey 200 consumers. It would take us 3 months to get the report back. We can now do this in days, and we can track it over time. So we have longitudinal studies on it that show kind of how things are shifting. So it becomes a tool that helps us drive our growth strategy as a company. and that's really exciting. And then you get down to like a brand level. It's actually helping us build. We're utilizing AI to actually build innovation concepts. And so we used to put in, you get a workshop together, it'd take a few days, you write a concept, brand manager writes a few concepts, you put 3 or 4 concepts in, what does best. Now it's literally, we're using AI. We put in the inputs of this is the audience, this is the need, this is the occasion. It will spit out thousands of ideas that you can test immediately with consumers. And so that's amazing, right? Like, because suddenly the possibilities open up so much broadly, and it's speed and efficient, So I think that's a great application of AI right now.
I think we're at time now. Thank you, everyone, for your questions, and thank you all, Justin, for joining us
Thanks a lot,
today.
Greg. I enjoyed it.